Because even when I go to some of these smaller conferences, say, are you familiar with Cyberscoop?
I heard of it.
So Cyberscoop has amazing conferences, especially if you have a .gov.mil, you can go there for free. But when I go to these conferences, I notice like people just like staring at your ID to see where you're at. So they can be looking at you just to get with your company. So that's why I think this is important.
Yeah, definitely important.
Yeah, because I noticed that. Just go to one of these conferences and just pay attention. They just be like, all Google out. I'm like, what are you looking at me?
Say something. It's weird. It's awkward.
They say something. Say hi. Buy me a drink. Buy me a drink at least. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. We're in that space. It's definitely spies and all kind of stuff we have to be concerned about. Okay. That's why I laugh when I hear like with small businesses that are doing contracts with DOD and some sensitive stuff, and they say, "Oh, we're too small for nation stuff."
I'm going after that.
Yeah, exactly. You're easy ones to take advantage. It's a lot easier for them to hack your systems in the DOD. Yeah. So you think they're going to go after?
I'm going after you.
Have the resistance. Absolutely.
Welcome everybody to another edition of the Tech Book Podcast. I'm your host, Chris, a cybersecurity specialist inside the GovTech space. And in this podcast, I'm very excited to have this talk, especially on CMMC. CMMC is a big topic that's been coming up in the GovTech space as of recently. It's a good way for a lot of people to get into cybersecurity right now. And also, if you're trying to make some money on the side working with the government, you can make a good bit of change working in this field right now. And to best explain this topic, we have a great guest today. His name is Derrich Phillips. He's the founder at Aspire Cyber. He's also a CC8 holder. He's been working in this field for many, many years, and he's the best person that we have to talk about this topic right now. And without further ado, Derrich Phillips, how you doing?
Doing good, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing good. As I just said, I'm really excited to have this conversation with you because I've been talking to guests in the past, like Fanta and some other people that's breaking into CMMC, and I was hearing like you can make money just doing 1099 work. You can just doing an assessment. You can make $10,000 to $50,000 just doing that, just doing a pre-assessment.
Yeah.
And also it's a new field for people to get in, get your certification, and then you can make some good money. If you get in early, you can become an expert and then really make your own way in the field. So am I saying the right things on this?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. It's certainly with CMMC, it's new. So right now, no one can say they've been doing CMMC for 20, 30 years, like with other frameworks. Yeah. So it is. You can get in at the ground level, and there's a lot of opportunities. So this is my favorite topic. I'm excited to talk to you about it.
We're going to go in. I'm going to ask every question because you're not only helping them, you're helping me. You know?
Good. Hey,
okay. So can we just go straight into it? Like, what is CMMC?
So the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification is the tongue twister. It essentially is a verification program that the DOD uses to verify that their vendors, the contractors that provide them product services, actually meet the cybersecurity requirements. Because essentially any information they're sharing with those vendors, federal contract information, FCI, controlled unclassified information, CUI, once it leaves federal systems and goes to those vendors, their private systems, they have to maintain that same level of cybersecurity.
Yeah, and that makes sense because I've been working in the RMF space, and I know that there's some companies that have the government information on. And I always be wondering, like, you got CUIs. Some of them got, I don't know if it goes up to secret. I have no idea on that. But
they're going to be a lot stricter secret, but yeah, you certainly likely some have CUI on there. Yeah. Their mobile device, their iPhone.
Oh, for everything.
Laptop.
Literally everything.
Exactly.
And I'm like, who's maintaining this? And I'm like, because it's not directly with the government, so I'm glad that they implemented this. And I know they've been giving they've been talking about this for many, many years, correct?
Many years. So the reason and the way the DOD categorizes it as a verification program because of the requirements in NIST 800-171, they've been a contractual requirement for DOD contractors since 2017. But the difference where it's a shift with CMMC is now the government's going to trust but verify. They're going to require that independent certification. Versus they've been accepting self-assessments. So defense, exactly. So if you allow somebody to do a self-assessment, of course they said those defense contractors, oh yeah, I'm good to go. We got all these requirements in place because there's 110 requirements. And yeah, they don't know what that means. The vast majority, well, a lot of especially the small businesses, they see the contractual requirement, but they don't know what it means. They're just like, okay, you just want me to attest to it? I'm good to go, DOD. And the DOD realizes that's a bad approach. So,
yeah, and that's like for me, I can be like, oh, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? Because I start laughing, I'm like, oh.
Exactly.
Yeah, so this year they kind of been going at it a little more. They made a deadline currently. Is it this year or this August or?
Yeah, so essentially, they had to go through a rulemaking process. They started back in 2020, where they initially published the rule. So just to kind of give the audience context, whenever a federal agency basically publishes a regulation, a rule, it has the authority of law. And they usually have to go through a process called rulemaking, where they have to publish it, take comments from the public, adjudicate those comments, respond to them. Then it has to go through the White House, the Office of Management and Budget, get cleared, and then at that point, it can become a final rule. So it takes time, on average, 2 to 3 years to go through that process. And essentially, the DoD for CMMC, they have two parts of the rule. They have the 32 CFR, that's the program rule. It tells you all the requirements. So that's complete now. That's final. It is a regulation. The other part is the 48 CFR rule. That's really the guidance for contracting officers to know how to insert it into solicitations. That's in the final phases of rulemaking. So it's already going through public comments. The DoD is essentially adjudicating those comments, responding, and then they're anticipating sometime this spring or summer, it'll be a final rule. At that point, they're going to do a 4-year phase rollout.
Okay.
Well, no, I'm sorry, 4 phases over 3 years. So the first year, they're going to essentially do still self-assessments for level 1 and some level 2, because there's 3 levels. And then for year 2, it's going to be more the level 2 and 3 certification assessments. And then by year 3, 2020, I believe it's 8, we're anticipating all DoD solicitations will have CMMC, that contractual clause. And why that's so important is it's a pre-award requirement. That means you can bid on a solicitation as a defense contractor or any company, but before DoD can award you that contract, you're going to have to show you have that certification.
Okay.
So that's a big deal.
Yeah, because I've been noticing a lot of companies, they've been scrambling. Like a lot of, and again, we keep talking about it. It's expensive to get this done.
Yeah, it can be. Certainly.
So
and the thing about it, so I try to break it down. So with CMMC, and we talked about like the sensitive information, FCI, CUI being on those defense contractors' private systems. Think about it like if you go to the bank, you withdraw $100. So the bank has a security requirement to protect your $100. Once you take it out of the bank, that $100 still has the same value, whether you put it on your dashboard, leave it on your trunk of your hood, or on your nightstand, it's still $100. Yes, so that's the way the DoD sees that sensitive information. Once it leaves their system, they have the regulation law. They have to, this executive order, it was under Obama, that required them to protect that CUI. And so that's where it catches up a lot of defense contractors. They're like, well, I didn't know I was supposed to do that, or I didn't realize how sensitive it was, and that's not a defense.
Yeah. That's a go. And then also too, it's like, do you feel like a lot of companies are going to start phasing out because of the requirements?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think so. So the DoD, they don't even know how many contractors they have. So essentially they estimate 80,000. And I've heard numbers as high as 300,000. Okay. The reason they don't know is they don't really have a line of sight into those subcontractors. So you know your primes, the Lockheed, General Dynamic, et cetera. But those primes that have direct contracts with the DoD, they could have thousands of subs under them, and the DoD doesn't really have insight into them. However, with CMMC, the requirements follows the information. So let's say Lockheed Martin, they have a contract with Lockheed Martin, and they're sharing CUI, FCI, and then Lockheed Martin sharing it with a sub. Those requirements follow. Then let's say the sub is sharing it with another sub. Wherever that information flows, the requirements follow.
And they can't really afford that. Okay.
Yeah, and to your point, with all those contractors, I think a lot of them are going to decide it's not worth them doing business with the DoD because it is expensive. And the thing about it, the requirements are the same, no matter if you're a one-person mom and pop shop or you're a Lockheed Martin. So with that, it's like it can be really expensive. So if you're looking at, I mentioned the 3 levels. So level 1, that's if your organization is just really handling FCI, federal contract information.
Okay, federal contract information. What is that? Like just information from what?
So at a high level, any information that you're receiving or creating in the performance of your contract that's not intended for public release. Okay. So that's a real low bar. So essentially, if you're a federal contractor, you can assume at a minimum you have FCI. Okay. So give you examples. It could be just emails between you and that contracting officer. That could be FCI. So you have to protect it to that level. And level 1, there's 15 requirements. Okay. It's still taken from 800-171 NIST. So that's not that difficult. I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's 15 requirements. Level 2 is a controlled unclassified information. At that point, you graduate from 15 requirements to 110 requirements. 110. So yeah, you're in the big leagues at that point. And at level 1, it still is a self-assessment.
Okay.
The DoD is still conceding, like, okay, self-assess. However, it has to be someone senior from that organization. So a senior affirming official that's attesting that, yes, we have all those 15 requirements implemented fully, and we're protecting this federal contract information. Now, the consequences of falsely doing that, you have the False Claims Act.
Oh, damn.
And then they could have, you face criminal and or civil penalties. Likely it's going to be, in most cases I've seen it's been civil, but it's a serious offense to falsely attest compliance. Then at level 2, you have, again, those 110 requirements. There's going to be a small subset of companies that can still self-attest at level 2. Those are going to be companies that, they really have cutting-edge technology, and the DoD is saying, okay, we need to get them on board at ASAP. So they're going to make exceptions for some, but it's going to be very few. I tell a lot of my clients, don't hold your breath thinking you're going to be self-assessment. At level 2, it's unlikely. The vast majority are going to need level 2 certification. And in order to get that certification, there's organizations called C3PAOs, CMMC, Third-Party Assessment Organization. They're the only ones that can certify you to level 2.
Okay.
And then level 3 is going to be only DoD performs those certification assessments. That's going to be more sensitive CUI and likely your bigger defense contractors. Okay. Well, not secret yet, so it's still all going to be unclassified, but it's going to be more sensitive in nature. So when you think about CUI, some examples could be blueprint to the F-35 or just more sensitive type information around protected health information or things like that.
Okay, that's some good information. Okay, so how does somebody break into this field? Like, say if I wanted to become an assessor, and just tell me about the different jobs that you can do. Okay.
So essentially, the DoD, they run the program for CMMC. They dictate the rules and regulations. Then they have a direct, I think it's called a no-cost contract with the Cyber AB.
Yes, I've heard of that.
Cyber accreditation body, which is a nonprofit organization, 501c3, that essentially they handle certifying the C3POs, those who are performing the certification assessments. And then entity of them is called the CAICO that handles certifications.
Oh, I didn't hear those.
Yeah, so they had to divide out into the Cyber AB and the CAICO. The CAICO, they're the ones that handle the certifications. It's called approved training providers. They're the ones who can deliver the training. And that's the CCP, the Certified CMMC Professional. That's like the first level that you go to if you're going to become a assessor. Okay, you have to be a CCP first. And from there, you have to take a training, certified training first, then take the exam. And then if you want to be an assessor, you will have to get a tier 3 background check. Okay. So that's almost equivalent to a security clearance.
Because I was going to ask you that, because when I was reading it, I was thinking they'll give you a security clearance, but they don't.
Yes, you're not awarded security clearance. It's called just basically tier 3. Basically your tier 3 is valid, but it's the same background check.
Okay, so like for the CCP, like how much is that cert going to cost you? By like $2,000?
So essentially you have to go through an authorized training provider.
Okay. And
those courses can be anywhere from a couple thousand. The higher end is like $3,000. Yeah, so I teach for one for Learning Tree International, and I think theirs are around 3,100.
3,100, okay.
The CCP exam. And to give you some context, so their CCP training, initially when I was teaching, it was a 5-day course, like all day, basically, 5-day course. And then now they reduced it to 4 days, but it's a lot of information. So,
do you think most people, like when they're training for a CCP, for example, it would take a long time to study, or is there other material you can use? Because I know with Security Plus, you have a lot of training material.
So that's a good point. So in terms of like the CCP, with it being fairly new, you have the training material you're going to get from an authorized training provider. Then you have all like the assessment guides and the scoping guides, all that the DoD publishes. That's free and public. So those are some supplemental information. And they're starting to be more like exam banks and things like that, but it's still pretty immature compared to like a Security Plus.
So the CCP is more if you're an auditor, right?
So the CCP is more, you can go 2 ways with it as a CCP. You can get your CCP and you can just do consulting.
Okay.
Helping the companies on the readiness side.
Okay.
Or if you want to go all the way and be an assessor, then you'll continue on, and next you will take the CCA course, which this is another 4 or 5 day course. Okay. And that's going to be another $2,000-$3,000 and take the exam.
So if you get the CCP, you can just train, right? Like if you train, you can just train people, make some money on the side doing that. Or just doing a basic audit. Can you do a basic audit with that for the government?
So essentially, if you just have your CCP, you actually can serve on an assessment team.
You can, okay.
However, you have to, once you have your CCP and you have to have your tier 3 completed, you can serve on an assessment team, but you can't score any of the requirements.
Okay.
You're kind of like, it's kind of like your intern or apprenticeship, essentially.
Okay. So you're just kind of like, you're just there, you're shadowing. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. You're trying to get some experience, you're supporting them on that team.
And the CCA is more you're leading the team.
So yeah, with CCA, there's 2 roles. You have the CCA, they're the assessors, so they can assess and score all 110 requirements. And then you have a lead CCA. So I'm a lead CCA, which means I can lead the assessment team under that C3PL.
Okay, I love that.
So as a lead CCA, I can't, since my company is not a C3PL, I can't just say, hey, I'm a lead CCA, I can certify your company. No, only a C3PL can do that. However, I can 1099 or work directly for a C3PL.
Oh, okay. So you can do, okay, I got you.
Yeah.
So like if I was to do this, look, can you kind of give the overview of a job? What do you do as an assessor?
So actually, I just served on my first assessment last week. And essentially your role as an assessor, usually the lead CCA is going to assign you domains. There's 14 domains for the level 2. And I think when I was on that assessment team, I had like 6 domains that were assigned to me, like awareness and training, incident response, et cetera. So I know going in, okay, these are the questions that I'm going to have to ask the organization that's seeking certification. I'm going to have to gather the information, determine if they meet the requirements. And then the lead assessor, he was asking the other questions for the other domains. And I would say that's the fun part. So it's still kind of stressful, though, because these are really high-stake assessments, because you imagine organizations, a lot of times, they spent anywhere $50,000, $60,000+
it's a lot of money.
Ready.
It's scary.
So, and they may have contracts on the line. So it is high stakes, and as assessor, yeah, you feel that pressure, and just as much as the other the organization getting assessed feels the pressure. But the part that I hadn't heard a lot of people talk about yet, as far as on the assessment side, is there's a lot of documentation that the assessor has to do. So
explain.
So in terms of once you go through, you ask them the questions and gather the information you need to determine if that requirement is met or not or applicable, you have to note down everything that helped you make that determination. Then you have to put it into like basically a spreadsheet that's going to be uploaded to the DoD.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, you have to have all that information. It took a long time for me to put all that information to the spreadsheet. So that part I didn't find too fun.
Yeah, and that can be harder because you can't really make any mistakes because, like I said, it's high stakes, you know?
It's very high stakes. So imagine, fortunately, on the assessment I was on, this company, they were pretty squared away because they hired an MSP who knew what they were doing. So they made it pretty straightforward, but we still had to go through the whole process. However, there's a lot of companies I've been hearing about that, what we've been calling false starts, where pretty much they're going into an assessment thinking they're ready. They hadn't really had any objective people knowing what they're doing. They really give them a test first, and they're going in and just bombing it.
Oh,
where they're not making it past the first day, and it's painful. But you can imagine them situations; they're not happy. Yeah, it gets real.
Money.
It gets ugly.
It's high stakes. You can really ruin your whole company off of that.
Yeah.
They literally
companies out of business. People lose their jobs.
Yeah,
especially if you say you're the one internally for that company that was leading the readiness. And you telling your boss that we're good to go. We're ready to get this certification.
You're fired. You're fired.
So yeah, it is really high stakes. It could be a stressful career.
Yeah, because okay, is there any ways to alleviate that? Because I know going straight into doing an assessment, is there a way to do like a pre-check or how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, what my company, Inspire Cyber, what we do, we have 5 phases where we start off with a pre-assessment. So we try to get an idea, okay, what's in scope? That's the biggest thing. What information do you have? What systems are in scope? What people, processes, technology? Because, for example, you can have a company of 100 people, but only 5 are actually involved in the DoD work. In that case, you want to scope them out. You want to only have those 5 touching the CUI and the other 95 out of scope. That's the goal versus having the whole company in scope. That's going to be very expensive. So once we complete the pre-assessment, then we do essentially a gap assessment.
Okay.
What's your current state against the requirements? Where are you today? And then from there, we document all the deficiencies. And then phase 3, we're doing a remediation plan. So now we're fixing the issues.
Okay.
And when I'm wearing this hat, I'm a consultant. I'm not an assessor because assessors can't give consulting guidance.
Okay.
So, for example, like I said, I was doing the assessment last week. I couldn't give them any guidance on how something was wrong, fix it, because you have to be objective. But when I'm doing readiness, I'm helping them from start to finish. So phase 3, we're remediating. That's where you can spend a lot of time because you're remediating the technical issues or findings and also the documentation. And really phase 4, we reserve for documentation, policies, procedures, system security plan. That is really the heavy lift for level 2.
Now, this is interesting. I'm learning so much. I didn't even know that when you talking about there's 2 government, you said C3PL and the other one?
Yeah, level 3 is going to be only the DOD DIPCAC assessors. So they have assessors internally that only do those assessments. So you in that case, a company would have to do first they would have the level 1 self-assessment, level 2 certified, then they would have to get a level 3. So they're going through essentially 3 assessments in that case. But that's going to be a smaller percentage. The vast majority is going to be level 2.
Yeah, there's a lot of money in that because you can do so many stuff. You can consult, you can teach. I heard with teaching, I think I was talking to Adam. He said like they kind of funnel it to you. So, you can't really do it yourself. Can you do it yourself or?
No, you have to work for an approved training provider.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So with your system security plan, essentially that's like your compliance story for the company. It's telling the assessors how do you satisfy each of those requirements. That could easily be a couple hundred pages for a small business. So you imagine telling a small business they need to document how they're doing it. And yeah, that could be intimidating just that alone.
Yeah, because even as an RMS specialist, right, and I heard you talking about the domains, like even going through CA, going to some of those controls, they can look at you crazy. Like, why do we have to do it? And then you have to make sure it's perfect. Like, even me, I have to do it. And they're going to ask, why are you asking this? And why are you trying to get in my system? Do you deal with that?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of pushback. So, essentially, especially on the readiness side, on the assessor side, it's different because you're objective. Okay, how are you satisfying this requirement? If they don't present enough evidence or they can't produce a test. So let's say, for example, multi-factor authentication.
Yeah, that's a big one to go.
Multi-factor authentication. And if they're saying they have multi-factor authentication on all their systems that are in scope, okay, great. Demonstrate it for me. Let me see you log into this system.
Oh, so you'll watch them do it?
Yeah.
Oh.
So essentially as an assessor, you have 3 modes that you can use, 3 methods. You can examine, so that's looking at the evidence, their policies, procedures, test. You can test it. So that's an example of test. Like you're not actually physically touching their systems, but you're having them do demonstrations and then also interviews. So really you're doing a combination of all 3 when you're going through that.
That's intense. And I love that because like even I work as an ISO currently. So I'll be like, okay, I'll talk to the system engineer and he'll say, hey, we have this, this, and this. Sometimes I can't even check, or sometimes I can look in the STIG and see that it's being applied, but I never get the actual chance to actually see it being done.
You have to in CMMC. Yeah, you can't just take their word for it. It's trust and verify.
Yeah, because I heard a story. I was watching a lady. She was making some CMMC content. She was kind of speaking as because there's not that many CCAs.
Right.
There's very few. It's like under 100 right now. Like
maybe probably around 200 now.
200 now.
Recent, but if you think about globally, that's small.
That's small.
In the bucket.
Yeah, so she said she was doing the assessment, so she went up there. Because you have to go in the building, and she said she went in the building, and I know they have to have somebody watch them the whole time. So the minute somebody walks away, you kind of failed.
You can't.
So I heard that story, and it's really very delicate when you're doing that.
Yep. And going back to your question, I'm going to tie it in. So we do the 5 phases for readiness. So phase 5 is the mock assessment phase, essentially. So what we call it the certification phase. But within that certification phase, we make sure we document all of the evidence. And then also we're doing a mock assessment for our clients. So we're applying the same level of rigor that they're going to experience during their certification assessment. And that's actually why I'm in town today. Tomorrow I'm going to a client site to do the mock assessment for their physical security part. Okay. And that's one of the things I'll be looking for. Okay, once I arrive on site, what's your sign-in procedures? Do you have something that identify me as a visitor, whether it's a badge, a lanyard? Also, and to your point, like say, we're all in a conference room. Their policy is going to say that they escort visitors at all times. I say I need to go to the bathroom, and if the person that's supposed to escort me say, "Oh yeah, it's just down the hall to the right," and I go there, and I can just start wandering around. Yeah, that can be a fail right there because they're not following their policy. And that's another thing with CMMC, which is so important. Anything you write down in that policy, you better be doing.
You better be doing
because
that's why I love
it's
it.
Fair game. Yeah,
that's why I love it because it really needs to be done because you don't know what information these businesses are holding, and I understand why it's so strict. Yeah. So Derrich, can you explain to me, like, from beginning to end, like, how is an audit? I know you kind of touched on it a couple times. Like, is it called assessment? Is it called an audit? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, so they call it assessment. So assessment, there is some flexibility in terms of how you're going to meet the requirements. The distinction between an audit is really no gray areas. It's kind of like yes or no. So there is some flexibility in terms of how organizations are going to meet the requirements with CMMC. That's why they call it an assessment. But in terms of your question, you said, how does it work from start to finish?
Just kind of explain the process.
Absolutely.
Just kind of like break it down so the audience, and so I can get a vision of it.
Sure, absolutely. So essentially, once a defense contractor determines, all right, we're going to have to get CMMC, let's say level 2 certified. We're going to need the certification. We're handling CUI. There's no avoiding it. At that point, they'll likely go to the CyberAB website. And on the CyberAB website, it's a marketplace. On that marketplace, it lists the C3POs, the ones who can perform the certification assessments. At that point, have them listed. They can just go through and start contacting them. So once they find a C3PO that they want to perform their certification assessment, that C3PO is going to have like a initial call with them to get a feel of what technology are you using, what type of data do you have in scope.
In 1 second, the C3PO is just companies that certified to do the assessment. And that's through the government or that's through the private sector?
Through the DOD. So the process, so any private sector company can become a C3PO, but they have to go through that certification assessment themselves first. And the DOD performs that assessment on them.
Okay.
And then once they become an authorized C3PO, then at that point they can do the certifications for level 2. Okay. So once they're meeting with that prospective client, and they're going to do an initial call and say, okay, what information do you have in scope? Do you have an active DOD contract? What system are you using? So the system includes the technology, your people, your technology, your processes, everything, and your facilities. So for example, on that initial call, if a company says, yes, we have CUI, that controlled unclassified information, and we're using Microsoft 365 commercial, for example, that's a no-go. That's a non-starter because CUI cannot be stored in commercial Microsoft 365 because it's not FedRAMP moderate. Yeah. It will have to be in their GCC or GCCI environment. So that usually is a non-starter for a lot of, especially small organizations. They're shocked by that. Like, what? What do you mean I can't store it in 365 commercial? So once we get past that hurdle and an assessor or that C3PO, which is going to be an assessor leading that call, is going to determine, okay, yes, they're ready for an assessment to move to the next phase, or no, they're not. And prior after that first call, they're going to, if they move past that phase, then they're going to say, okay, send me your documentation, send me your system security plan. Okay. So this is an existing requirement in this 80171. It has been a requirement since 2017. So if that defense contractor says, what is a system security plan? They're not ready for a certification.
Yeah, basic, man.
Yeah, so they're going to want to see a system security plan. They're going to see your policies, and they're going to review them. They're not assessing you at that point. They're just reviewing it to see if that company's ready to move forward, because no one wants a false start. No one wants to start that assessment, take their money, and day one decide, like, no, they're not ready. So they try to do as much of that pre-work. Let's say that the defense contractor, they get past those hurdles, and then at that point, they're going to schedule the assessment. And usually the assessment is going to be anywhere from 3 to 5 days. If, let's say, that CUI is only being stored in a cloud environment, there's no physical CUI, then that could likely going to be a virtual assessment.
Oh, that's good.
Like over Zoom or whatever tool they use. And then pretty much, they'll schedule that assessment, let them know what SMEs are going to need to be available during each time period. They'll say, okay, during day one, we're going to cover access control. We're going to cover awareness and training, personnel security.
It's similar to like our audience, like in the government space. Go ahead.
Okay. Cool. So during that assessment, like say anywhere from 3 to 5 days, the assessors, they're going through each of the 110 requirements. So the catch is and this has 2 documents. They have the 80171, which has the 110 requirements, but then they have a separate document, which is 80171 Alpha. That's the assessment guide. So that's what the assessors use. And with the assessment guide, there's 320 assessment objectives.
Oh, dang.
So, yeah. So essentially, a lot of times what happens where if it's an organization trying to do their readiness internally and they don't have the expertise, they'll look at 80171 and they'll see those 110 requirements. And let's say, look at the first one, 3.1.1 access control. They'll read the requirements. Oh, yeah, we do that. So that's the subjective response. But once you go to the assessment guide, that 3.1.1 has 6 assessment objectives. Saying, okay, do you do A, B, C, D? Do you define users? How do you onboard the user? So that's objective, and that's what the assessors are going to be looking at. Okay. Yeah. So at that point, that's what the assessment is going through. We're going through all 320 assessment objectives.
So let me ask you a question. If they get one thing wrong, is that a fail?
It can be.
One thing? And they playing 60? Nah, I understand now. Okay, it's making sense to me.
So give you an example. So the 3.1.1 is the first requirement for level 2, access control. There are 6 assessment objectives. You have to have all 6 assessment objectives met to get that requirement met, to get that 1 point. because the max score is 110 points, 110 requirements. But let's say if you have 5 of those 6 assessment objectives, your assessment's over.
Dang.
Because you've missed it.
Dang.
You can't put that on a poem. That can't be.
You can't be. This ain't no poem right here.
You can't have poems, but that's one that can't be on a poem. It's only a few. It's only like the 1-pointers. And because essentially each requirement is either have a weight of 1 point, 3 points, or 5 points. The higher number of points is like the higher level of sensitivity and the impact it could have if it's not met. So there's a lot that cannot be on the poem, and 3.1.1 is one of those.
Okay.
So your assessment be over right then.
That's crazy.
That's tough.
Okay, so you kind of explained that one. That's one of the difficulties. Can you explain some of the more difficulties about doing the job?
About doing the job?
Yeah.
So in terms of, I'll start with the assessment side first. I know you mentioned you're considering getting your CCP.
Yeah.
And I would say anyone who's looking to get into CMMC as a consultant or ultimately an assessor, that is a good starting point, because it's called a designation. It's called the RP, the registered practitioner. Mm-hmm. It's like as far as I know, it's like a 4-hour course, mm-hmm. and you're not going to know a lot. It's focused on implementation and consultants. However, if you really want to be in this career field, I would recommend getting your CCP, because that's a certification.
Okay.
And let's say as a defense contractor company, they want to know that you know what you're doing, because CMMC is very specialized. You can be brilliant at cybersecurity, GRC. That don't mean you know CMMC. Yeah. It's a very specialized career field. And so getting that CCP is going to give you at least that level of authority and give those prospective clients that assurance that you know what you're doing. And with your CCP, you can be in a good position to hang up your shingle and start doing consulting. Okay. Because that's the biggest thing that these contracting companies want to know is you know what you're doing. And I mentioned earlier about the marketplace. As a CCP, you would be listed on the marketplace as certified.
So, and then the CCA is kind of more in the next level.
Next level, more advanced. So with the CCP, I believe that you need like one year of experience or college degree is what they recommend. I'm not sure how strict they are on that, but CCA, you need like 5 years of cybersecurity experience, and you have to have one of those advanced certs like the CISP, CISM, like those.
So you gotta have one of those too.
You have to have one of those for a CCA. So they are a lot stricter at CCA, but CCP, I would say if you got a year experience, you can get your foot in the door.
Have you ever got screamed at because because they failed the assessment?
I haven't. So I've only been on one certification assessment yet, and that one went well.
Okay. Thank you.
I've heard some horror stories from my colleagues who are out there. And another thing, so CMMC just went into effect. Well, in terms of the CPOs just got authorized January 3rd to start doing CMMC Level 2 certification assessments. So they're underway, but it hasn't been that many done so far, maybe 100 at this point. Okay. But we're starting to hear stories from the front lines. A lot of companies are false starting. They're not ready. They might have signed up with a CPO 6 months ago and thought they were going to be ready, but they're not. And this is not a type of certification assessment you can fake your way through it. You cannot fake it. It is rigorous. It's painful. You have to have the documentation. And then you're being interviewed. You're being tested. It showed me. So, for example, one of the domains is around personnel security. So likely that subject matter expert I'm going to want to interview for that is going to be someone dealing with HR. So if you send the system administrator for that interview, are you the one doing the onboarding employees? If he say no, you're not the right person. I need to talk to who's doing it. So that's another thing. They're going to want to speak to the subject matter experts for that corresponding domain.
Are you passionate about tech, cybersecurity, social change? Join the Tech Woke movement on Patreon. Get exclusive access to discussions on emerging tech trends, cybersecurity insights, and valuable resources to help you get hired in tech, learn from others in the community, exchange ideas, and gain skills that will help set you apart whether you're a developer, enthusiast, or looking to break into the industry. This is your space. Support the movement, stay ahead of the curve, and be a part of the change. Join us today on Patreon.com/TechWoke. I see you there.
So by the end of that assessment week, if everything went well, the assessment team is going to say, okay, all your requirements are trending is met. And they'll say trending is met because still there has to be a QA function. Mm-hmm. A CCA has to serve as the QA to review all the assessor's comments to make sure that they have the adequate information and that they're good to go. So by the end of the week, at least that organization will know that they're trending met and likely going to get certified. Everybody's happy in going, but that's if it goes well. If it doesn't go well, day 2 or 3, they'll know like
it's over.
It's pretty much over. That's not going to be a happy conversation. People are not going to be.
It's like me and Shador in the draft. You're like, well, at this point, if it's not the first or 2 rounds, and then it's like it is what it is, you know.
It's all down here from there. At that point, there might be some cussing and all that. Yeah.
So it's like, from your perspective, have you seen a lot of small companies getting approved, or is it mainly the larger companies?
You said getting approved or certified?
Yeah, certified.
Both.
Okay.
But typically with the smaller companies, they've hired expertise consultants, a CCP or some CTPO, someone to come in and help them do it.
They coming ready. They say, listen, if I'm going to spend this money, I got to be on point. The largest company, I'll throw everything. Go ahead.
Yeah, I tell clients this is not a DIY project at level 2. I just wouldn't recommend it. Just like, I don't know much about cars, so if my engine went out, I'm not going to try to figure it out myself. Change the transmission, it's not going to go well. But yeah, you want to hire that professional to do it.
How much money can you, working for a company, how much money can you make? You make like, what is it like? Just give me a range, the low end and then the high end, just so I can know, because I don't even know.
Yeah. So, again, with it still being fairly new, some ranges I've seen out there. So let's say if you are, let's say a CCP, start out with CCP on the consulting side, because that's typically who I interface with. I would say I've seen hourly ranges for anywhere from, let's say 75 to 125 an hour.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty legit.
That's pretty good.
Make decent money. That's the CCP. CCA, I've seen rates from 125 all the way to 325.
125 an hour. Hey, I need to go get my CCA.
I see it to 325.
325?
325. Now this person was a CTPO as well.
Oh, okay. So
is the higher end.
Yeah.
So that's on the consultant side. As far as like jobs, and we are starting to see more full-time jobs because the activity is increasing. As far as companies needing this certification, I would say a CCP, they can make, I would say anywhere from 100, 125.
That's good money.
Salary.
Life-changing money.
Yeah, and then as a CCA, north of 150.
150, that's some good money.
Definitely north of 150.
Yeah.
So it's definitely good money to be made.
So when I look for this position, I go on Indeed just looking for what are you looking for when it's posted on jobs? Like, what is it called?
Yeah. So CMMC, like, is going to have that term acronym. NIST SB 800 171. You're going to want to look for that. Those are really going to be the main things. CUI, FCI, things like that.
Because I'd be like, CMMC, I see some jobs with that, but it's just, like you said, it's not out there as much right now.
It's still relatively new. Because essentially, CMMC is not in any DOD contracts yet. That won't happen until that 48 CFR rule I mentioned that's in the final phases is actually when they start that rollout.
Because I heard they was trying to get rid of the mandatory mandate on it. So do you think they're going to still keep it, or do you think they're just going to get rid of it, or what you think?
Yeah, I think it's this train's too far down the track. It's too much been invested. It's been, the DOD alone has been doing the rulemaking for over 2 years. It's a lot, and then they have the infrastructure in place now, the CTPOs. And then also you think about it from the threat standpoint and national security, and the whole reason they implemented this verification program is because ultimately our adversaries and nation states are still in the IP, still in the national secrets from defense contractors, because that's a low-hanging fruit. And I don't see it going anywhere.
Because you got China and all. Because even when I go to some of these smaller conferences, say, are you familiar with Cyberscoop?
I heard of it.
So Cyberscoop has amazing conferences, especially if you have a .gov.mil, you can go there for free. But when I go to these conferences, I notice like people just like staring at your ID to see where you're at. So they can be looking at you just to get with your company. So that's why I think this is important.
Yeah, definitely important.
Yeah, because I noticed that. Just go to one of these conferences and just pay attention. They just be like, all Googled out. I'm like, what are you looking at me?
What are you looking at? Say something. It's weird. It's awkward.
You say something. Say hi. Buy me a drink. Buy me a drink at least. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. We're in that space. It's definitely spies and all kind of stuff we have to be concerned about. Okay. That's why I laugh when I hear like with small businesses that are doing contracts with DOD and some sensitive stuff, and they say, "Oh, we're too small for nation states to worry about."
I'm going after that.
Yeah, it's like easy ones to take advantage. It's a lot easier for them to hack your systems than the DOD. Yeah. So you think they're going to go after?
I'm going after you.
Half of least resistance. Absolutely.
So you've been working in CMMC for a while. You've been doing the audits, and I've seen your background, third-party assessment, and things like that. Mm-hmm. So you've been in this field. What do you do? So I know you have a group. Can you explain a little bit about the group that you're doing currently for CMMC? And
Sure.
And how was it founded?
Sure. So it's called the CMMC Professionals Network. and it's a 501c3 nonprofit. I started it back in October of last year, and it was funny. I was just laying in bed, and my wife was like, I told my wife, like, oh, I got an aha moment. It's just, she hate when I say that. She knows I'm going to have to do something.
Something going.
Yeah, something goes like, oh, here we go again.
You're going to execute.
I was like, yeah, exactly. Like, what now? So I was like, I think we should start a nonprofit for the CMMC, those consultants, professionals, to give them support, because there's a lot of, within CMMC, there's a lot of support for the defense contractors. But I'm contacted almost daily by people who are like, hey, what about CMMC? How can I get into it? How can I get some hands-on experience? So I'm like, okay, let's start a community, because I didn't see anything like that within the CMMC ecosystem. And she was like, are you crazy? You already running Aspire Cyber. You already got a business. Yeah. Running a nonprofit, that's another business.
That's a business.
She was right. But I was like, nah, I'm gonna do it. So I identified some people that I knew that were active in CMMC and asked them to be on my leadership team. So I identified 5 people, and they all said yes, thankfully. Then we also have a board of directors. But really the focus of CMMC Professionals Network, we call it CPN for short, is to provide mentorship. So we pair our members with one-on-one mentors, because a lot, especially people new to CMMC, or a lot of people are transitioning from other career fields, they don't know where to start. So we want to make sure they have that mentorship, that guidance from more senior people, and then also giving them hands-on experience. So we have several partnerships with the cloud service providers.
That's cool.
For example, Google Workspace, they gave us 40 licenses to allow members to get hands-on experience with their tools. Okay. Also, Prevail gave us licenses as well. Microsoft gave us training. So this is just basically they're contributing to try to help the members get hands-on experience, because they know this is going to be such a big career field, a lot of opportunities, and it's just going to need that level of just filling that pipeline.
Yeah, because I see you post about it all the time. I've started so many communities. Because I understand. Then I'm getting into the nonprofits. I'm actually going to be on a board of one soon.
Awesome.
So I understand how it goes. That's a job in its own.
Yeah, it's keeps me super busy nowadays. In addition to running Aspire Cyber, but fortunately it's all related. It's still all CMMC, so that helps. And then it also feeds each other, because now that talent pool that I'm identifying within CPN. Now I can give them opportunities on the consulting side with Aspire Cyber.
That's a good feeder system.
It is.
And then how do you join your community? Like, is it free? How do you get in?
So it started on LinkedIn. We're up to 1,000 members on LinkedIn right now.
1,000 members?
A little over 1,000, yeah.
Okay.
So it started on LinkedIn. Anyone can join that LinkedIn group. And then just last month, we launched our paid membership. So we have 3 levels of community membership. That's, you have access to LinkedIn, you have access to our Discord, you have access to our YouTube channel, where we produce, or we deliver webinars. So we interview people about CMMC.
That's all.
Yep. And so you have that's in community. Then we have the professional membership. That's $99 per year. And that's what gives you access, gives you access to the mentorship. So once you sign up as a professional member, we'll pair you with someone who's volunteered to be a mentor.
Oh, they do? So you have a mentor? Oh, okay.
One-on-one pairing. And then also they'll have access to the hands-on training, like I mentioned with the Google Workspace licenses and other training like that. So we have members who have volunteered their expertise to serve as what we call advisors, who delivers that training to our professional members. And then the highest level, we have founding members, which that one is essentially they invest in for membership for life. Right now it's $8.99, and we have 5 founding members right now. Essentially, they just believe in our mission. They're like, hey, we want to help you all get some operational capital, because it's expensive. So we have to build out a learning management system for this training, and then other expenses we have. So that's the memberships.
I'm gonna check it out myself, see if I can join. Because that's because I didn't know the in depth of it. And then too, I like the feeder system. You're giving them, they're helping you. They believe in the mission. I know for you to lead that stuff, you have to have the fire all the time. So to keep it going. Yeah,
it's a lot of work. I underestimated how much work it is, but it's fun. It's really exciting to help people and make an impact. So what's cool about it is, we're really focusing on building that community. So we had our first local meetup in person in Dallas last month. And we had about 40 people show up to the in-person meetup. And next month, we're going to be doing a mock assessment at the meetup to kind of demonstrate what it looks like. And today we had 5 members meet me out at brunch, CPN members. So we did kind of like a DC meetup. So that's cool. So we're just kind of spreading out, and we want to be able to do these meetups and just have that community around CMMC supporting those professionals.
That's amazing. Can you also explain, when did you start Aspire Cyber? Like, how did that process? And then it's scary because you do that full time.
Yeah,
like, you literally left your job.
That's what pays the bills.
Tell me about that. Tell me about that.
So prior to starting Aspire Cyber, this was 2021, I was working for Bank of America doing third-party risk assessments. And that's really where I discovered my love for GRC, because in that role, just like what DOD is verifying their vendors' compliance, Bank of America, financial services, they have a mature program. They've been doing that for years. And that's what I was doing at Bank of America. And it was one day I was working with one of Bank of America's, a small company that wanted to be a vendor to Bank of America. They had to go through an assessment first, cybersecurity assessment, before they can become a vendor. And I was speaking to the CEO of the company, and he was just really frustrated with the process because he had been at it for a couple months trying to figure it out, and he wasn't making any progress. And he told me, he's like, I spent $75,000 on a consultant to get through this process. $75,000.
Like,
and he still he wasn't close to completing that assessment. So that was kind of mind blowing for me. But it also was another aha moment. Like, wait a minute, like there's a lot of small businesses out there like him who need to understand how to navigate these compliance requirements. And it's become a cost of doing business. Like with SOC 2, where there's so many small businesses, they have to demonstrate a SOC 2 before a large enterprise is going to do business with them. So the same way with Bank of America. And I came home, told my wife again, hey, I think we should start a business. It's basically what I'm doing for Bank of America. I can take those skills I've learned to help these small businesses navigate those requirements. And for that one, she was like, I like this. She's like, that's a good idea. Yeah, she saw that right away. And her background is marketing, but she didn't, even though she's not cybersecurity, she's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And from there, I got my LLC that same week, website, all just off to the races.
Did it. You just went out.
But I didn't go all in terms of quitting my job right away.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't go full time in Aspire Cyber until like March of that following year, until we landed our first big client.
Okay.
But
so it was like, time to go.
That's what got the ball rolling, and yeah, haven't looked back since. It was the best decision I could have made, which I would have made a lot sooner in hindsight. And that's what I tell a lot of cybersecurity professionals, especially if they want to break into it, especially if they have skills already. It's like, you don't have to necessarily just look for a job. Hang up your shingle, just like attorneys. Hang your shingle up and start consulting. And there's no shortage of small businesses that need your help.
And like you said, for what you do, you just need a CCP to kind of consult on your own.
You don't need it. It's going to give you can consult with defense contractors and get them ready for CMMC level 2 without having anything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as long as you convince them that you know what you're doing, you can help them. Okay. Yeah, there's no requirement. You just need those certifications on the assessment side, like that to do certification.
Okay, now
yeah, so it's two different sides. So you got the readiness, the consulting side. Yeah, there's no certification requirement, but the assessment side, that's where that comes in at. But it is good if you're going to do just consulting, and it is good, I recommend to have the CCP, because first it's going to give you that baseline knowledge. I mentioned it's like a week-long course. It's a lot of information. And then also it's going to put you on that marketplace that gives you a level of authority, and it gives your prospective clients that assurance that, okay, yeah, Chris Derrich knows what he's doing, versus just some Joe Blow off the street saying, hey, I'm going to help you get ready. And like, okay, what's your credentials? Like,
who are you? Who are you?
So yeah, it gives you a level of credibility.
So like, even with me, like I've been working in the field for 5 years, but some people can be like, oh, I don't have enough experience. So I really like that you said it. Just do it, because I know so many people that's making a lot of money just doing the contracting side, like literally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you could. And then, so are you like the prime? Like with consulting, do you just consult, or do you do work? Like, are you a prime? Or are you a sub? Can you explain that?
Yeah, so on the readiness side, we're supporting those defense contractors. So we don't have a contract with DOD.
Okay.
We're a private sector company supporting another private sector company to get ready for the DOD compliance.
So it's literally consulting them. Like you get a fee. So you just get a certain fee, and you just give them information and let them know okay, that's good. So you can get paid for consulting. Like literally just giving advice? Just
advisory. However, we can get involved where we can actually implement the requirements if they need us to. So it just depends on what staff they have. And what's cool with the whole Bank of America, it came full circle, because we have clients now where they've contacted us to help them get through a Bank of America assessment. So I'm able to leverage that expertise.
Even better.
Yeah.
So like when you got your first client, I just want to say, when you first got your first big contract, how do you do that? Do you reach out to a lot of people, or how does that work?
Yeah, so essentially when I first got started, and I can't remember where I'd heard about it from, but Upwork, you're familiar with Upwork?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was already familiar with Fiverr, but right around when we started, I heard about Upwork from like a book or something, or podcast. So essentially I set up a profile on Upwork.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and then I just started bidding on projects, and it was a numbers game.
I never heard that story before.
Yeah, so it was a numbers game. So that's where we get the first year. That was the majority of our clients came from Upwork. And we landed a client, our first big client, it was a 6-figure project on Upwork.
Oh, okay.
And the crazy thing about that story, so the client, he had posted the project on Upwork, but the verbiage of it made it seem like it was like a full-time job, a role. Mm-hmm. So I remember talking to my wife about it. I was like, I'm not trying to be an employee again. So she was like, just ask him if he's open to working B2B to allow us to consult for it. And I asked him, he was like, yeah, he was open to it. That ended up being our first big project through Upwork. Okay,
that's cool, because like I'm on Upwork, and I never used Upwork because I never understood Upwork. I never, it's so I noticed you can put there's people that write contracts on there. There's cybersecurity people on Upwork, and I was like, how does that even work? Does regular people need to work for this? And so I think that's a good, interesting. Actually, that's probably the most interesting. You're the first one I heard get a big client off of Upwork.
Yeah, Upwork. So essentially, with Upwork, you have I think they call them consultants, but let's say the consultants you set up as a profile, or you can be a business profile.
Okay.
So yeah, if you're looking for projects, you're going to be under that consultant profile, freelancer profile, and yeah, it's a numbers game. I would say from 3 years ago to now, I'm not as active on there anymore. It is a lot more competitive because you're competing with people from all over the world. That's probably going to be charging a lot less. However, in the context of CMMC, yes, you have. It's not a lot of people that know CMMC, so that gives you an advantage. And I've seen jobs posted on CMMC for CMMC on Upwork.
Oh, okay, that's very interesting. So now, like, when you market your business, I see you post a lot on LinkedIn. I think you got like what, 20,000? What are you, like 10 to 20,000 followers on there?
I wish. I'm at like 5,000.
5,000 is still pretty good. And I know you're always posting. Is that how you market now to get people to come to you?
Yeah, that's the big thing, especially for CMMC. So I've been doing videos on YouTube for probably about 2 years on just CMMC. So now more people are contacting me now from videos I might have did a year ago or 2 years ago. So it's essentially like that organic content, and that's what I recommend for, especially anyone that's going to do consulting for CMMC. If they're going to you have to put yourself out there. You have to establish yourself as that expert, and that's the best way to do it that I could think of, where you're going to have people finding you that you just being contacted randomly, that you have to put that work in. It's kind of like planting that seed and now starting to cultivate. And it's not going to happen overnight, just like, building your channel. It don't happen overnight. It's a grind, but it's worth it because literally, people I just had someone contact me the other day, like, hey, I saw your YouTube video. Like, okay, great. So as far as having those leads coming to you, versus if someone comes to me and say, yeah, I'm an expert in CMMC. I just had this recently, someone like, okay, you have any I looked on LinkedIn. I didn't see any post on LinkedIn. Like, he was reposting some stuff. I tried to look on YouTube. I see no content. And he wanted to like teach a course for us. And I'm like, do you got any video content I can look at? Show me your body of work. So that's another thing with YouTube and doing video content. Yeah, people can actually see, okay, this is somebody I want to work with. I like their personality, I like their vibe, versus just sending them a resume and now you just with the masses. They don't stand out.
Like people now, they teach people how to get into cyber, but I'm like, you never worked in cyber, bro. like I see like PNP or something like that. I'm like, what did you do?
Right, no hands-on experience, no practice.
And I like with you too. When I first contacted you, you don't know this. I kind of been stalking you for a while because I like your CMMC stuff, and it's very few people that post it. And I like when you looked at me, you looked straight on the YouTube. He's like, oh, okay, he got some stuff, so I can actually talk to him. You know what I'm saying?
It's real.
He's not AI. I'm not AI.
Yeah, man, it helps. And that's all about kind of like your personal brand. I tell you, even if you're working for a company, nothing stops you from putting out content. If you say you're an expert, put content out. Help people, teach them. That's going to go a long way. It really is.
Because I'm working on something called a RMF Academy, and I learned. So I'm going to create a separate podcast for that, just for that specifically.
To be focused.
Like the more, like even me, I started posting. I got like 6,000 followers on LinkedIn now. Wow. But all I did was just post RMF content, and it was like, okay, I'm an expert. But now people reach out to me directly for that. So
exactly.
You get me so excited because I'm like, okay, I think you're starting to convince me I need to start my own, like, to the government. You know what I'm saying? Like something like that. Because
Possibilities unlimited. Like, why not? And what's cool about it, as you know, once you start doing content and putting yourself out there, so many other opportunities are going to open up, things you never even consider. Yeah. So, like, looking on your channel, I see you got merch on your channel out here. I'm sure you didn't think about that when you first started. That's what's cool. Is just do it. Get in motion. That's what I tell people. That momentum going to just lead you into a lot of great possibilities, opportunities.
Because I'm not a fashion guy. I mean, I look nice now.
GQ.
I know everybody see me like literally dressed up, but sometimes I be walking through this place looking crazy, you know? So I didn't think I was ever going to get into merch. And then when somebody actually bought it, I was shocked. I was like, somebody bought, now with all these tariffs, I don't know, I might take it down, you know? Yeah, you never know the possibilities when it comes to merch. You don't know what you're going to do. Like, you don't know what's possible until you say you can. Because I'm a big believer in speaking things to existence, but have you ever had like imposter syndrome?
Oh, all the time.
Still to this day?
Yeah, still to this day.
Okay.
Still to this day. I'm doing a keynote this month, this April. Yeah, next month. I'm doing a keynote, and it's going to be a big conference, probably my biggest speaking opportunity. And it's always still going to have that imposter syndrome, but it's acting in despite that and realize, hey, I'm a big believer that you're where you're supposed to be. So yeah, I'm supposed to be on that stage because I've put in the work. I put in the time. I've done tons of presentations, free presentations, small groups. Just this week, I was speaking in a high school class, and it's just a matter of getting those reps in and doing it. But yeah, I think it's natural to have that self-doubt, but at the same time, realizing and giving yourself credit for what you've accomplished and still moving forward.
Because even with speaking, like, you know, that's hard to even get those type of gigs. Like, you literally had to do, and you know, like, even when I do podcasting, for example, I use that in speaking audience, but speaking an audience is different. But putting those reps, you can probably speak at any moment. And I noticed that even you're good at memory, you know what you're saying, you know how to control it. So it takes time to learn that, right?
Yeah, definitely. You have to get those reps in. And then also, as you're speaking on a topic that you know well, if you're saying you're an expert in this topic,
you better know.
You should be able to talk it. Like, we've been talking over the hours. Like,
that's what we talked about. Because I was like, well, I wasn't too worried about you because I was like, I'm going to send you some questions. But I was like, well, you're the expert. You should know. Exactly. You should know the dime of the hat, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure if I was asking you questions about RML, you know it inside
that's
out.
On
You don't
site.
need the prep.
Yeah, that's on site. I better know.
Definitely.
So, Derrich, it was good speaking with you. I wish I could speak to you a little bit more because we're going short on time, but can you tell the audience where they can find you?
Yeah, sure. So you can check out our website, aspirecyber.com, or our YouTube channel is Aspire Cyber. So that's everything that we do in terms of CMMC readiness. Then we also offer virtual CISO monthly packages for small businesses.
Oh, you do that?
Yeah. So that's another line of business. That can be another topic one time. I'm going to come back and check you out.
Yes.
That's our main business right now, really. And then the CMMC is picking up. And then other than that, the CMMC Professionals Network, you can find us on LinkedIn. And then also our website is cmmcpathways.org.
Okay. So also, this is what I always ask the guests. What's your goals for the next 5 years?
So the next 5 years, I would say continue to grow Aspire Cyber.
Give me something big.
Something big. So in terms of what I see as my legacy is going to be CPN, so the CMMC Professionals Network. My goal is the really inspiration behind it is, are you familiar with Toastmasters?
I know Toastmasters very well.
I'm a big fan of Toastmasters. They helped me overcome my fear of public speaking.
Okay.
But, you know, Toastmasters has chapters, clubs all over the world. And that's my goal with CPN is to have chapters all over the world and helping members accelerate their career in CMMC. So that's something that I feel will have the greatest impact.
You don't want to have the biggest company? You don't want to have the biggest company? You don't want to dominate, make $1 billion?
I want to have the most impactful nonprofit organization.
I love that.
Yeah.
In the country.
In the country, in the world. Yeah, in the world.
Yeah, I love that. I like to speak those, you know, I just want to make sure you put it out there.
Definitely. Manifest it.
So also, too, what is like one thing you want to lead the audience with? It can be a quote. It can be a statement. Just let me know what you want to lead the audience with.
First thing come to mind for me is a quote I heard by Will Smith where he says, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. So that's one of the biggest things where in terms of put yourself out there, take action. What's the worst can happen? If you're just sitting on the couch and thinking about it, pondering, I'm big on execution. Anyone I'm mentoring, I tell them, execute. I don't want to spend months, years strategizing, trying to plan the perfect execution. Just do it. That's how you're going to figure it out. In terms of being an entrepreneur, I just had to get out there and do it. I have an MBA. They taught me nothing about entrepreneurship. But once I actually start running the business and making mistakes and learning from those, that's where I actually started to grow and get traction. So yeah, just believe in yourself and do it.
Yeah, I love that quote because when I first started podcasting, I just let the audience know, like, I talked to so many people that's trying to get into social media. They always, I was told by many, many people, oh, yeah, you're not a good personality for the camera. You know, you're a little dry. And you know what? That might have been right. But they don't understand. If you keep doing something, you're eventually going to get good at it.
Exactly.
You know, if anything you do, I don't care what you do. If you do it enough, eventually you're going to be like, I'm sucked so much. I'm going to at least get better. You know,
it's going to get better. Those reps. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great
And likely the people who are telling you that, they're not hosting a podcast. They're critics. Anybody can be a critic.
They them people, like I got to tell, I said this in many other podcasts, the same people that said they couldn't do it, they the same people that asked for advice.
Yeah.
But now I have to, can I get an invoice for that? You know what I'm saying? Because I don't got time.
I got to charge.
I had time back then, but you didn't believe in me.
Exactly. So I think we all had that chip on our shoulder where we've had people that doubted us, but you also got to believe in yourself, certainly.
Yeah, but I still help them. You know, I got to keep the faith. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, don't take it personal.
Keep the faith. I got to keep the faith. You know what I'm saying?
They motivated you in a way. Yeah. I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yeah, so thank you, Derrich, for coming on the podcast and, you know, just gracing this. I really enjoyed this podcast. It was great.
Yeah, my pleasure. This was a lot of fun. And obviously, this is my favorite topic, CMMC. So I talk about this forever. But yeah, I really appreciate it. I love what you're doing. You're making an impact. And what's really unique about your show is your transparency. You're very transparent. You're raw. You share your, what I consider learning lessons, what other people might consider as failures or mistakes. And that really resonates with people because it's real. In this field, a lot of people have egos in tech, so they want to make it seem like they've always been top notch. They've always had it all figured out. But in reality, people know that's not real. That doesn't resonate. So it's really refreshing to see a podcast like yours. And yeah, it's definitely, I'm honored to be on here.
No, I appreciate you. Yeah, I try to keep it raw because it's stuff. I'm not the best. I'm good, but I wasn't always the best. And I just want to make sure that they know because there's a lot of people that think I was that person. I'm a black kid. I didn't think I can get into this field. Mm-hmm. So I want to let them know, hey, anybody, if I can get in, you can get in. You know, I'm from Washington, D.C. I didn't grow up in the biggest house or this best neighborhood. So I appreciate you for everything you said on that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so thank you, everybody, for watching this podcast. Derrich was great on this podcast. I hope you learned a lot about CMMC. You learned how to get into government contract, and I know I learned a lot. I'm definitely going to use a lot of this stuff that I learned, and I'm definitely going to go back in this podcast and take notes, so thank you for this one. So remember, everybody, if you're watching the podcast on YouTube, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below, share this video to anybody that's trying to get inside the field. Go on techwokepodcast.com, cop some of that Tech Woke merch, and also check out the Patreon. We have all the pre-release videos before it comes out. We're going to start putting in more content on that. And remember, everybody, get 1% better every day. Peace out. I'll see you on the next one.